Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Jason Goldberg. I am on Everforward Radio today with my dude Chase, and we talked about some amazing things. We talked about mindset. We talked about sports and how we don't know anything about sports. We talked about ways to really have human optimization and flourish in your life and have a lot more fun in the process. You are not going to want to miss this episode. Check it out.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the show, Nella. All right. For those of you watching the video, today's all about Nella. She decided to invade the set and upstage you.
I have a feeling every day is about Nella.
You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong, actually. Yeah. What's up, JG?
What's up, brother?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for this. We had an amazing conversation before we ever did this.
I know.
So this has a lot to live up to.
And, I reference that a lot on the show. It's like, before we were talking, you always hear that on podcast land or conversations. And it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like that whole time, maybe some things maybe shouldn't have been recorded, but a lot of that conversation was just like, that's what I love about where I am in life and this profession and really just this platform, man. It's just connection. And it's just, hey, what's my story? What's your story? What are your experiences? And we've been sharing stories and like helping each other in ways like beyond just hitting record, man. So already, thank you.
Dude, thank you, man. It's been amazing. I'm so excited to be here with you. And we just met in person for the first time recently.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like I've known you forever.
That's wild.
So but it's a testament
man.
to how you show up in the world. I'm sure I'm not the only person that says that. People probably meet you all the time and like, there's just something about this. It's the East Coast in you. It's the East Coast in you, bro. But either way, I'm just super excited to be here with you, man.
You beat me to LA by a year.
Yeah.
And as we're recording, I'm pretty much at my 2-year anniversary.
Yep.
You've been here for 3, right?
Almost 3, yeah. 3 next month, yeah.
What brought you to LA, man? Why LA?
So I came here a lot for like speaking and everything else. Obviously, a lot of stuff in personal growth happens in LA, and I do a lot of work with a company called Mind Valley, and they do a lot of stuff in LA. So I was coming out here every 6 weeks or so anyways to do something. And then I actually went through a divorce. So I was on the East Coast. I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. I went through a divorce in 2017.
Okay.
And I realized, because I traveled a lot and stuff like that, and for some other reasons, I never really cultivated a lot of community in North Carolina. And Raleigh's a great city, but I just never really cultivated a whole lot of community. And so when that happened and I realized I didn't really have a lot of community there, I started thinking to myself, where do I have community?
Okay.
And I had a lot of people here in LA that I felt really connected to. And I'm like, this is the time when I'm in transition and reinvention and transformation. This is the time I want to be around people that I know like light me up and fill my heart up.
Yeah.
And so literally, I think it was like 2 weeks after the breakup, I had to come out to LA to film something. I had a half a day to look for a place. I went to the first place that I looked at. I looked at 2 places. First place I looked at was terrible. It was old and it was moldy. And I'm like, oh my God, universe, what are you telling me? And then I went to the second place and I loved it. And I signed the lease that day. I flew back to Raleigh, packed up all my stuff, sent all the boxes over via UPS, jumped on a plane to meet the boxes and come over. And within a couple of weeks, I had moved and relocated to LA, and it's been here ever since, and it's been amazing.
That kind of surprises me. East Coast and the South.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Virginia.
Yeah.
I grew up for the first 18 years of my life, pretty much on the Virginia and North Carolina border. Very, very small town, just growing up in the mountains, and like the Southern charm, the Southern hospitality, all that stuff. It's wild for me to kind of hear that you didn't have that kind of community. I guess you weren't from there, right?
Yeah, I wasn't from there. I was originally so I was born in North Miami Beach, and then I moved when I was 2, not by myself. Like my mom moved with me.
You just crawled all the way
done. Yeah, somebody pinned a $20 bill to my onesie and was like, have at it. So I went from Miami to Orlando, and then I was in Orlando for 30 something years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so the reason for moving to Raleigh was that for anybody that's been to Orlando, it has 2 seasons, right? It's hot and hot as hell. That's our 2 seasons. seasons, and it's super flat. There's just like nothing there. So I'm like, I want some seasons. I want some elevation. And in my previous life, before I became an entrepreneur, I was in tech for 15 years.
Okay.
And a lot of that time I did work in partnership with Cisco, and not the thong song Cisco.
Yeah.
The other, So
I could see you definitely with some silver hair and everything. Yeah, man.
Baby, don't. You're welcome. So,
am I getting copyright flagged now for that?
Oh God, I just realized it was 2 seconds. It was okay. I think it's a 3-second limit. It's all BS. So when I was figuring like, I want to get out of Florida, I want to get elevation and seasons. Cisco has their second biggest office in Raleigh. So I had gone there a bunch. So I'm like, let's just move to Raleigh. By that time I was an entrepreneur. I could kind of work from wherever. And so we picked up and moved there. But the thing is, there's a little more now. There wasn't a huge like conscious community in Raleigh. There is much more now. I give them a lot of credit. One of my buddies who's actually here in LA right now for a couple of weeks started a big part of the conscious movement there, which is great.
Okay.
But I think it was partly that, and it was partly that I looked to my partner for everything. Like I made her my whole world.
Yeah.
And that was also a great lesson for me in becoming single again, that like community is important. Even when you have a dedicated partnership or romantic partnership, community outside that relationship is still really important. Right, Nella?
It's ridiculous.
That's a stretch, bro.
That's a stretch of agreement.
That's a stretch of agreement. Thank you, Nella. I appreciate the validation.
Nella approves.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's go there. Community for me is absolutely huge. And that's something that I have struggled with. I don't know if struggle is the right word. It has been very, very important to me because of every time that I do have an established community, it's very well established.
Yeah.
My family growing up, very tight-knit, close, grew up with, my grandparents on a bunch of land, gardening, just tribe. After that, I, 17, 18, left for the military. 6 years. I mean, that's another tribe, tight-knit tribe.
Oh, yeah.
After that, moved back home. I'm back with my family again. I go to school. And so every kind of community that I had, there was very little downtime. Even though there was transition, I went from one to another pretty quickly. And honestly, man, moving here 2 years ago was the first time in 32 years at that point that I actually struggled to really plug and connect in community. Yeah. A lot of abundance, a lot of opportunity, a lot of quote community here in LA, but finding the right one, I hate to say vetting, but kind of just
it is vetting though.
Above, beyond service level kind of stuff. Did you struggle with that as well? What was your kind of community integration like going from East Coast, West Coast? Yeah.
So for me, and this is something that I think I love that you said that because it makes me think of something that I've never really articulated before, is that I know that feeling of you want to plug in and it's, there's already established communities and it's hard sometimes to break in, it's a very Drake, no new friends kind of thing happening sometimes in certain circles. Especially
as an adult. Every time I'm an adult, I'm meeting new people. I'm are we becoming friends? Do I have time for this? This is this is a big commitment.
Just give candy to everybody. Just like little kids, right? If you're a kid and you give another kid M&Ms, you're best friends. It's why doesn't that shit work as adults? Yeah. So for me, like I said, I had a lot of friends, or I won't say a lot. I had a handful of people here that I really loved and trusted. But I had one person in particular, one of my best friends in the entire world who I effing love beyond words, a woman called Ashley Stahl. I don't know if you know Ashley.
Yeah.
Did you know? Okay.
Well, not personally.
Okay.
I think we're one. You're another degree of separation, basically.
Yeah, and she's amazing. And she was somebody who really quickly plugged me in. She was like, everybody, you have to meet Jason. And she brought me into the fold. And I'm so grateful for her because I can trace so many of the people that I'm friends with now to initial connections that she had made.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the reason I say it's funny that you brought that up and then I think about that now is that I try to do that now when I meet people who are new and I'm I'm going to pull you in. I'm going to introduce you to this community. I'm going to bring you to this gathering when we used to have gatherings and, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important that if you're not somebody who is already in a community, find somebody who's plugged in and who's willing and warm enough to invite you in. And if you are part of a community, become one of those people who brings people into the fold and has them really one of my favorite things in the world is when I bring one person into another community and I can sell them to each other.
Yeah.
You don't know Chase? Oh my God, let me tell you all about Chase. You can just
remove yourself from the equation and just yes.
It's one of my favorite things in the world to do, man.
Do you have kind of a process for, I guess vetting again, community? How do you kind of walk through the steps of, yes, this serves me in ways and I can serve the community? Because I feel those are kind of the two ways that reciprocity needs to happen to be an honest community, for one that you're actually going to value. What's your kind of your checks and balances with that?
It's funny, man. For me, it's so much, and this is such an LA thing to say, it's such an energetic thing for me. I know as soon as I meet somebody, is it going to be hard to have a conversation with this person or easy to have a conversation with this person? Content aside, context of conversation is it going to be easy? Is it hard for me to carry this conversation? Am I constantly trying to figure out what I'm going to say next, or does it flow? And I'm somebody who can typically keep conversation up pretty well.
Yeah.
And if I meet somebody where it just isn't, I can't have that conversation with them, it doesn't matter how much I could serve them or how much they could serve me, it's not going to work. And so for me, it's like, it's that ease. Like, how quickly can I really be the silly, goofy, rap-loving, spiritual, but still very pragmatic JG? Yeah. The sooner I can do that, the more I know we're tribe.
It seems like you know yourself pretty well.
Most of the time.
I mean, you clearly, I mean, I know, just in the short time I've got to know you, like, I know you've gone through a lot and you've gone through a lot of the work. I mean, you just right now rattled off a lot of things that it seems you're pretty aware of what you contribute, and also what you know, you kind of like how you can fill other cups and how they can fill yours.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
Yeah, this was actually a big thing for me. It started off as a business related kind of exploration for me, but then I realized that it has much further reaching implications and applications in business. And I remember when so just a little background professionally. So like I said, 15 years in tech, the majority of that in technology consulting when I was in Florida. And then when I left corporate, I started up a transportation startup that was kind of like pre-Uber. It was, we created mobile executive offices. So we would have basically like, think of like a Sprinter van with an office built in the back.
No way.
And then we could take people across the state. This is when I was in Florida. We would take people across the state. They would be like a NetJets thing where they would buy like packages of points. They had like a $10,000 package, and then people in their company could use it, and we would deduct points. And that way they could actually bill people. So it was mainly for service professionals like lawyers and stuff.
So while people were in transportation, they could
be making money as opposed to spending money. Yeah, they could actually bill. Yeah. So we had that, and we had like the CEO of Priceline.com on our advisory board, and it was something I started doing when I was in grad school. It was a really cool thing. I did that, and then my second startup was in partnership with NASA and the space shuttle program, and we did some technology commercialization. Dude, it was so freaking cool.
Do you know space shit?
I do. I know some space shit. See, the thing is, on our team, I was a CEO.
How to get Chase on a tangent? Talk about space.
Oh, are you a space guy?
Oh, dude, hard man.
I will tell you. I have a picture of myself with a shuttle orbiter window, like from the shuttle, with one of the NASA scientists, and we're going over it because the technology that my company commercialized was from the shuttle program there.
Yo,
dude,
you're out of this world.
I also am a huge pun fan.
Dad joke.
I have a dad joke book on my counter. One of my favorite dad jokes in the world that I have to tell you right now is, hey, Chase, I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down. You're welcome.
I'm going to use that 100%.
You're welcome.
I'm co-signing on that later.
Yeah. So I did the NASA thing, and through all of this is when I had started getting into personal growth, and I was experiencing transformation from being coached. I was 332 pounds at one point, massively.
Whoa, no way.
Yeah,
wow.
Really big, and I was big my whole life. Like I was 250 pounds when I was 15. Which is when kids are really loving and accepting.
Of course, had no problems whatsoever. Yeah.
And I was a hopeless romantic, but like to girls in high school, I was kind of like a Ken doll down here, just like flat plastic. There was nothing really going on. So that was kind of a tough 4 years. Man, wow. So I struggled with all that stuff. And then I had massive stress and depression and anger and anxiety. Just my whole life I've had that stuff. And so in going through being coached and discovering personal growth and all this, I was having a lot of transformation, and I really wanted to like turn around and do that for other people, right? Like when you go to a restaurant that's amazing, you can't help but tell all your friends about the restaurant, right?
Yeah, you just can't shut up about it.
You can't shut up about it, which I'm sure can be annoying sometimes. But so I knew I wanted to get into personal growth. Yeah. So that's when I kind of started working in like coaching and speaking, and I started that in 2013 is when I got into this kind of form of the business. So all that to say, back to me knowing myself, was that I was really trying to figure out how I was going to differentiate myself, right? Because everybody knows this in marketing. You got to differentiate. You got to stand out from the crowd. How do you do that? And the way I started doing it when I started doing this business was that I was so intense, so obsessed with figuring out what I was going to be known for. Like, what's the thing I can hang my hat on that nobody else has ever done? And that is a futile exercise in butt-puckering stress and anxiety to figure out the thing that you're going to do that nobody's ever done before, right? To be evolutionary.
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
No pressure.
Just to be like the biggest thing ever. And so I would be out there and I'm speaking and I'm creating different things and I'm coaching and doing these things. And I would get this reflection from people, either after I did a keynote or they saw some video I posted or something, and they would say, man, I don't know what it is about you. Like when I watch you, I just feel more joyful. I feel more playful. And I'm like, yeah, but tell me about how smart I am. The thing I just shared, tell me why that's life-changing. And I kept pushing it away. And it wasn't until 2017 when my book came out, when Prison Break came out, I was doing a press tour, and my very last interview was at Good Day Sacramento, a morning show there.
Okay.
And it was great. And the anchor there, a guy named Cody Stark, super cool, no relation to Tony Stark.
I was going to say.
No relation whatsoever. I tried. He was so cool. He had prepped, he had read the book and stuff. And he interviewed me. And at the end of the interview, when they're like taking the mic off me and everything, and he says, Jason, I don't know what it is about you, man. I just feel so much joy when I'm around you. The guests in the green room said it. Our AV people said it. The co-host said it. Like everybody said it. And for some reason that day, it really keyed into me. I'm like, oh shit, that's my thing. And I realized it wasn't about figuring out what I was going to be known for. It was about figuring out what I was going to be known for activating in other people. What could I activate in other people? What feeling or sense could I activate? What could I give them permission to feel? And when I started really getting that, like, oh, dude, that's your thing, then that becomes the butter in the pan for me. No matter what I create, whether it's in work stuff or in friendships or whatever, if I lead with knowing who I am, that naturally, when I don't try, I tend to activate that for people, then the rest takes care of itself.
You're the plug, man. You're the catalyst.
Really on the plug. Sorry.
A couple of things came up right there, and I'm gonna really try not to forget this stuff. Luckily, I feel that strong coffee kicking right now. Like I'm about to dial into the matrix any second now. When you were talking about like, what am I gonna be known for?
Yeah.
Immediately the question came up for me was, is it ego or legacy? Would you say, how would you define those two, and how would you kind of define them in that particular experience?
Such a good question. So here's the thing. I am one of the people who will tell you ego is not a bad thing. Right?
I agree.
Yeah. Because to me, ego drives my service. Because for me to say it doesn't feel really good for me to do a Facebook Live where people say, oh my God, I needed to hear that. That insight is going to change everything for me. I'd be lying. And there are some people like, nope, I deflect that. It's not about me. It's about you. Fine. And it makes me feel really good when that happens. So if that drives me to do more of that stuff, great. Legacy is a different story. I have crap though. Even as I think about this though, it still has to come partly from ego. I'm just thinking about for me.
It's tricky. Yeah,
it's really tricky.
I mean, I do think. I was just asking that question. That's what popped up. I don't know if there is a strong differentiation. I don't even know if I would say that you can have one without the other.
Yeah.
They both probably need a little bit of both. But just when you said that, I was like, I guess really the question was, what was the driving force? Was it because of ego, or was it because of legacy?
I think if we can put what I'm about to say under the umbrella of ego, I think it's ego, because I think it fits better in that one than in legacy. Is the deep-seated need to feel enough, right? So, growing up, being raised by a single mother, my dad left my mom when she was pregnant, never seen him. He could walk by me on the street, wouldn't even know
never
who
met
he
your
was.
father?
Never met him, never seen a picture of him, no clue who this man is. He literally could be anywhere around us right now. It could be Nuncio. Nuncio could be my father, but I'm guessing probably
Jason,
not.
I brought you here to tell you something, actually.
Where's Maury? We need Maury right now.
Envelope, please.
But I really think that, like, because of that, and it's something that, it's everybody has their own version of feeling not enough or whatever. We all have it in some part of our lives, so I'm not special. But I think for me, growing up and being, having all this stress and this anger and depression and being so overweight, there were two things I developed really early on as coping mechanisms.
Okay.
One was humor, because if I can make people laugh, then I can at least not
deflect.
get picked on. Yeah, I can deflect. I won't get picked on as much. Or if I'm laughing at myself, then obviously it's harder for them to laugh at me.
Yeah.
But also it did feel like there was a sense of validation, approval. The second one was empathy, because since I didn't get the romantic interest of women, I would listen to their problems, girls, right?
Right,
Because in high school, I would listen to their problems in a way that none of the other guys would. And so I would still get the connection, at least part of the connection I was looking for.
A lot of the connection,
A huge amount of the connection. And so I developed those things as coping mechanisms. And funny enough, those are the driving forces of how I serve in the world now.
Wow.
Right? Everything is a shadow and a gift side to it, right? So I think for me, it was ego in that I really wanted to feel enough. And I feel like now that shadow of needing to feel enough is what I've channeled into being of service and making it a gift.
I love that, man. I love that. The second thing that came to mind when you were talking about your story was, I always say, and this is, in a past life, I was just health coach, Chase. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Lived in the health, fitness, wellness world. And for me, I worked for many years in a clinical environment, and was working with morbidly obese people, pre-existing conditions, comorbidities, things like that. Yep. And it was always like, it was the weight loss, it was the fitness, it was the nutrition, all of those external things that needed to happen, like literally needed to happen for these people's lives. But then that was just, it was what needed to happen before the thing that really needed to happen. It was fitness was a gateway drug. The weight loss was a gateway drug. It was just the starting point to true transformation, to true personal development, to really learning about the human potential. Would you say was that true for you? Was it as the weight began to come off? And I'm curious, how did you do that? And then what else happened after that, man?
Yeah, it was a both and for me, because what I realized was I was carrying around the physical weight, which was easy to see because I was 330 pounds. But what I didn't realize was how much emotional weight I was carrying around and how much mental weight I was carrying around, and that all those forms of weight, WEIGHT weight, were causing me to wait, WAIT, to get out in the world and do things, right? And then it was this weird cycle. Like the longer I waited, the heavier I felt. Right. And it's just like this self-propagating cycle of like, you're still not doing the thing. You're still not being who you want to be. You're still not putting yourself out in the world the way you want to. And then that makes it even easier to keep eating the crap that I'm not supposed to eat. And it's just this self-propagating loop. So I had tried everything you could think of. Luckily, I had actually had the same family doctor from the time I was 15 until the time I was in my early 30s.
Oh, wow.
And so they had documented all the things I had tried.
It had to have been so helpful.
It was super helpful.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had like Sugar Busters and Weight Watchers and South Beach and all these different things. And I don't know why it wasn't working, but my sense is that there was partially there was a pragmatic part that I still wasn't eating or moving the way I needed to, but part of it I think was a mental block. Like I needed to create that space of having a larger body so that maybe I had protection from things outside of me. You know, I'm not going to let anybody leave me again like Dad did. So I'll create this buffer of protection in the form of a larger physical body. So I think that it'd be ridiculous to think there wasn't something linked there. But ultimately what happened was, after all of this trying and all of this, it had just gotten so bad, 332 pounds. I think my BMI at this point was 41. It was really, really high. And so I ended up having bariatric surgery in 2011. I had the gastric sleeve. And this is something I didn't used to want to talk about because there's still a stigma that means like you took the easy way out, right? Like you went in for a surgery and then the weight just pours off and you're good to go. And I had to go through a year of preparation to have the surgery, including psychological evaluations and a lot of other things to even have the surgery. And then the work started. I'm not going to lie. Having the surgery, first 40 pounds or so, came off fairly easy. I wasn't really eating at all. I didn't have any solid foods for a month from the surgery. I was pretty much all clear liquids and like baby food kind of stuff for a month. But after that, like the first 30, 40 pounds were good. The other 80, 90 pounds that I lost, I had to work. I had to change my relationship to food, to movement, to all these things. And I'm 9 years out. I mean, you can gain all the way back after surgery too. A lot of
most
people think
do. Any significant weight loss after 5 years, it's either come back, if not even more.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's been my work to keep this off over the years, the last 9 years. And like I said, it was something that I used to not talk about because of the stigma, but I don't really give a shit what people think about anymore because I know the work I had to put in. And I know that the mental shifts I had to go through as a part of that are actually much bigger than the physical stuff that I went through.
How so? Because it all takes work, right?
Yeah.
But it's different kinds of work. How would you kind of quantify the work for the physical self, for the physical weight, the emotional weight, the spiritual weight, all the things that come with total weight loss?
Yeah. For me, it's I don't know if you've ever experienced this. It's funny. People think if you're like a coach and you're in personal growth, you have your shit all figured out and like you never struggle. And I'm like, it puts me even more in the crosshairs because I'm like exposed to it constantly. I'm hyper observant. I'm hyper vigilant about like my mindset and everything else. So I probably see things that I need to change in my mindset that aren't actually there, but I still try to focus on them. And so the reason it's even more challenging sometimes is that it can feel, if you have a bad day, right? A bad day, something happens, something knocks you off your game. It can feel, at least for me, I won't speak for anybody else ever. In my experience, it can feel like, oh my God, this has all been a fluke. I didn't actually transform. I've been fooling myself all these times. If I have one day of anger, right? Like I have an angry outburst and like, oh my God, you're that guy again when you were 18 who was punching holes in wall and chasing people in traffic. Like that's who you really are. That is debilitating to your soul if you don't know how to navigate that.
It's like you feel like you've lost your right to be human.
You really
I'm not
do.
allowed to have these mess ups because I've learned A, B, and C, you know?
Exactly. Especially when you're the guy who activates joy and playfulness, right? So that can be a kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
There's a guy, do you know a guy called Adam Roa? Are you familiar with Adam Roa? He has a really popular, he's a poet, spoken word poet guy, and he has like a Goldcast video that has like 200 million views of this really beautiful poem.
Good for him.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful poem that he did. And I remember we met, so I said I do some work with this company, Mind Valley. I don't know if you know Mind Valley.
Yeah.
So I host their event called A-Fest. I MC their event called A-Fest. And Adam came and spoke at one of the A-Fests in Portugal last year. And afterwards, we were just messaging on WhatsApp afterwards, and he's like, hey, I really want to honor you for how much joy and like play and humor and stuff that you bring to your work, and how much of a burden I bet that is sometimes.
Whoa, no way.
And he like, that hit me right in the heart. Like I felt so seen that I was like, sometimes it can be a burden. It can. And so the reason I say that is that like, I want us to be able to talk about that stuff. I want it to be okay that I'm the joy and play guy and I still deal with shit. I still have my down days because I do, right? This is like, if you have an entire history like I do from a very young age of being like a teenager in extreme depression, the goal for me of personal growth is not immunity to stress, anxiety, depression, and anger. It's navigation of those things. It's closing the window of time from the time you get triggered and the thing happens to when you get back to a place of peace and equanimity. That's success. That's transformation to me. So, but when I have moments where I don't realize that, then it's like, oh no, you're undoing all your progress. Whereas if you gain a half a pound, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, then no more processed foods tomorrow and it'll come back off, right?
Yes,
So to me, that was why it was a bigger deal for the inner work than the outer work.
Honestly, man, that's very true, very spot on for me. I shout out to a special person here in the audience a little bit. It's kind of just triggering some past memories and the seasons of life, really. That's really what I thought through the physical years, growing up a young man, being in the military, and then getting out. Long story short, I learned how to walk again twice. I had to go through I went through a lot of injuries in the military, and so the physical self became my mission. And then when I got out, that's why I got into what I did, was because it was so important for me to reestablish that norm that I studied it and then worked in it. But like the physical self I thought that was it. I thought I figured out fitness. I got fit, like that's it, I'm done. But no, it's not. It's a realization that you don't get immunity, like you said. You finally get all the tools that you need in your toolbox to maintain. And then every day it's just like fine tuning. And then same thing with personal development. Once kind of like life happened and I really stepped into new career, new relationships, and separated military chase, it was like there's a lot of other emotional stuff. There's a lot of personal development. I listened to one podcast and became enlightened, kind of thing. And it was like, wow, you think you think you read these things, hear these things, like okay, cool, like I can solve that problem. Now it's done. No, it is kind of that double-edged sword. It's that burden and the gift at the same time. It's the gift of knowing that I'm not alone, that there are ways to work through this stuff, and I can feel better. I can do better, do more, but it's not like a solution to everything. Right.
Yeah. It's a day by day, moment by moment practice.
And that is where people, I think, get most tripped up.
Totally. And beating themselves up about it, because this is the thing, right? Like personal growth is no different than Michael Jordan practicing his jump shot. He never got to a point where he was like, you know what? I got this. Coach, just call me when the game starts. Like, it's a constant thing, right? And I remember actually I was talking to somebody about this, and I know nothing about sports. So when I use sports metaphors, like I want some golf claps because like it's a big deal.
Oh, I don't do sports. I don't know. You
don't do sports either?
Yeah, no.
My man.
I'm pretty sure the Lakers are going to the Super Bowl this year. That's what
they might be, but it depends if their blades have been sharpened enough to get on the ice.
They got a hat trick last time.
Oh, they did get a hat trick? See, I didn't even know about that.
Johnson got
a
home run and it was sealed the deal.
Before or after he won the Kentucky Derby? Was that?
Well, I mean, he was already bogeying the whole time.
Bogeying.
So yeah,
I love Humphrey.
Well, for two people who don't know sports, we know a lot of sports.
We know a lot about sports, but I was talking to a buddy about this, and this is a buddy who like played college basketball and like he's really into sports. And he was talking about how we were talking about mastery, just like, the process of mastery, which I love mastery as a process. It's not a destination.
Self-mastery.
Self-mastery,
right,
Mastery of anything, really.
Okay.
So you look at LeBron James, who it would be fair to say is a master or has mastery level.
I don't even sports, and I know he's killing it.
Even with his hairline, you still know, right? So the thing he was saying was, if you look at LeBron James dribbling is when they take the ball and bounce it. When you look, not like out of the mouth. So when you look at LeBron James dribbling, you can't tell if he's left-handed or right-handed because he's put in so much time, you can't tell, right? And so that was kind of like a lesson in mastery, and we're sitting there talking, and then somebody else says something in the conversation about kind of what we're saying. Like, do you guys ever get upset that like you feel like you've mastered something like emotionally, mindset wise, and then you get like hit by it again and it like knocks you off your game? And I was like, yeah. And then I was thinking about the mastery thing and I said, you know what? Actually, the LeBron thing is a really, really good thing to think about. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, listen, if LeBron James had practiced his entire life, right, basketball his entire life in Ohio, which is at sea level, let's say, right? And his stamina was up and he could play the full game and he could just like left and right. Nobody knows like what his thing is. He's just a master. And then for the first time ever, he goes to Denver, Colorado to play. And now the elevation's different and the way he processes oxygen is different. He's going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I've been practicing this for all these years. Why is it hard for me to run down the court? Yeah. And it's like every time you go to a new level of anything, but a new level of mastery in your life, you're going to be presented with things like this.
Yeah.
If you're really going to step into your next level of self-leadership, you're at a different elevation. So it's only to be expected that these things are going to come back up. The difference is, like if you're playing a video game and you come around a corner and you get killed, you remember now what's around that corner. So you're a little better prepared to face it. And to me, if you're a little better prepared to face it, if you know how the system works, that's the biggest problem, dude, is when we don't understand how the system works. We think a thing happens and then we have like the event happens and then we have a feeling. When we don't know that there's a thought that happens in between the event and the feeling, no matter what we're doing, we're trying to mold and modify and manipulate all the events in our lives. And then life never seems to work. But as soon as we know how the system works, now we're at least a little more equipped to say, oh, this is what I call having a Britney Spears moment. Like, a thought pops in my head, I take it seriously and I go, oops, I did it again. Yeah. Like I let a thought take over what's going on in my world. So it's so important to learn how the system works so you have a fighting chance to actually flourish.
I actually had a Britney Spears moment over quarantine. I shaved my head.
Oh my God. Yeah. And did you beat up a van with an umbrella too?
I didn't go that far.
You should have. You're such a loser.
But I just like, fuck it. I just buzzed my head.
Did you really buzz your head though?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I got to see pictures of this.
Actually,
you could pull it off
It wasn't that bad, I thought. Yeah. It worked out better because actually I shaved my head, but I grew out my beard.
Nice.
So it was like a good contrast, I guess.
Just like pulled it through, just pulled the hair through the chin and just came out.
All this stuff, is this kind of like the meat of the book, Prison Break?
Yeah, man.
Is that the inspiration? Is that the theme? Is that the work? Is that the expectation here?
It is, man. Yeah. I just, there's just it's so easy to be a prisoner of circumstance, to be at the whim of who's in the White House, what's going on in the economy, the song on the radio that reminds you of your ex. It's so easy to live in that circumstance. And I've done it my entire life, and there are still moments that I do it. What I want to show people in the book is that there's a different option moment by moment. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. You're not bad or wrong if you have a prisoner moment. The key is to recognize that we are creating our reality, right? Because at least when we know that, we could say, and there are plenty of times where I have prisoner moments, but I say to myself, I'm choosing this. I'm deciding right now I'm going to be a prisoner. That's okay. That's a win. Like to know that it's not the thing out there, that it's just you, that's still a win. Because once we have that awareness, there's this great quote by a guy called Nathaniel Brandon, who's since passed away, but he was a psychotherapist. He says, you can't leave a place you've never been. Right? Okay. You can't leave a place you've never been. So if I start having the realization like, oh, I'm really angry and really upset right now, but I'm creating this in this moment, I've now seen the place where I'm at. I now have a baseline to say, cool, does this serve me? Is this the way I want to show up? How would I actually like to feel, right? Given the conditions of the game that I'm playing with right now, what would I like to create? Like using the language of intention, right? Like what would I love to create? So for me, and the kind of whole premise of the book is when we don't make our thoughts so significant, right? When we don't take everything so seriously, it's much easier to navigate things. And that is my practice constantly, is trying to say to myself, number one, stop beating yourself up. You're having a human experience. It's okay. And to use the tools that allow me to kind of break out of this self-imposed prison that I've put myself in. I'm in a prison where I am both the captive and the captor, right? Like I own all of that. So the more I can be playful with my thoughts and not take them too seriously, the less they have any effect on me. So one of my mantras, for example, that I love and I try to practice as much as possible is present but irrelevant. Present but irrelevant.
What do you mean by that?
So what that means is, if I'm driving in my car, right? I'm literally driving down the road in my car. And let's say you're sitting next to me in the car, Chase, and you are having just a terrible day. You're angry or you're depressed or you're sad or you're all three. You got the hat trick, right? I think you got the hat trick, right? Yeah, so you're sitting in the car next to me. The interesting thing about that is that you being in that state in the passenger seat next to me does not change the way the car operates.
Yeah.
Steering wheel still operates the same. Gas and brake pedal all operate the same. You're present, but you're irrelevant to my experience of actually operating the vehicle.
Okay.
So the more I can notice my thoughts and say, there's a stressful thought. present but irrelevant. I acknowledge you. I'm not trying to get you to go away. I don't want anybody to hear this and say, okay, well, how do I reframe? How do I push away? How do I overcome?
It's not stuffing it down. It's not ignoring.
None of that stuff. It's none of that stuff. It's understanding that it's okay. You can welcome it in. You literally can welcome it in and say, stress, I see you. Depressive thought, I see you. Anxiety, I see you. And you don't have to be relevant to my experience. You can come along for the ride. You can sit here as long as you want. I'm not trying to even get rid of you. A lot of times when we think about like sadness or kind of heavy emotions, we think about getting rid of them. What if we said instead, you can stay here as long as you want?
Yeah.
And happiness, when happiness comes, what if we said, you don't have to stay? You guys are all cool to come and be transient as you want to.
Man, that's so huge. I feel like I'm in a therapy session.
Well, first you had a psychic session, now you had a therapy session.
Seriously. And again, this is why I'm just so grateful for what I do. Like, thank you for this conversation, man.
Thank you, man.
I lost my dad at 19 to a terminal illness. And it was right at, like, the show's about you, I promise. I keep telling my story.
No, dude, I love your story.
But it's
Please.
connection. And so at 19, I was about a year into my military career, becoming a young man. Anybody at that age, you're stepping into your own. And during that time, I always use the excuse of like, I don't have the luxury of feeling that right now. I had about 30 days of emergency leave, got to go home, bury my father, be with my family. And then I had to go back to being a soldier. And I always said that I didn't have the luxury. I couldn't afford to be sad. I didn't have the ability to be depressed or to grieve or go through that. I had I had a very, very demanding job, and it messed me up. That was an excuse. I absolutely could have and should have. And the number one piece of advice I would always go back and give myself is like, Chase, it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel that.
Yes.
And you should. I always had this kind of idea that if you're happy, if you're outgoing, if you're doing all these things that are good and norm, like it's good. Those are allowed to happen. But anything other than that can't. Mm-hmm. But no, man, like, please, like, talk to me, talk to 19-year-old Chase, talk to people who are stuck there of like, why don't we allow ourselves to feel those things and how important it is? I had this analogy. Have you ever watched Dexter? I always say like your dark passenger. Like we all have this dark passenger or dark passengers that we don't need to get rid of them. In fact, they're there. They're not driving the ship. They're not driving the car, but like we need to learn to be present with them because they do have a lesson for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you share that. Thank you for sharing that story. And I think it's well-meaning. And I think actually the reason I think it's hard for us to feel these things sometimes or think that we're not supposed to feel them.
Yeah, even more so.
Yeah, even more so. That's the thing is like, that's why permission is such a big deal. Like I actually say, and a lot of coaches and personal growth people don't like when I say this, but I say that as coaches or people in this field, we're in the PR business, but PR stands for permission and reminders.
Okay.
Right.
I like that.
There's nothing super brand new that any of us are saying. People
agree.
out there need permission. And you hear it. People say, oh, I really need to hear this today. Or thanks for the reminder. You have innate wisdom that tells you it's okay to feel. Where I think a lot of this comes from, and I don't think this is talked about enough, I think where a lot of this comes from is that the people in our lives growing up could not hold space for those emotions.
100%.
Right? You're a kid and you're crying. Oh, honey, what? No, it's okay. Don't cry. Why? Why shouldn't I cry?
That's because your parent was just like, please just shut up.
Of course.
That's like, and
it's well-intentioned, right?
Sure,
they're not bad. They're not trying to emotionally stunt us. But everywhere you go, people, they've even done like kind of studies on this as well. Like when somebody's crying, don't hand them a tissue because you're essentially saying you need to get rid of your tears. Right?
Wow.
So it's like we're judging these emotions, and if people are not comfortable holding space for your emotions, and we have this tribe mentality of wanting to be accepted and approved of, then we better stuff that shit down because we don't want to chase people away or make 100%. Them uncomfortable, right? So that's why I think it's so important, especially for men, and this is not just men, but especially for men, is to be able to hold space for that, not just for the females in our lives, but the males in our lives as well, because I think there is so much mental health that could be mental health challenges that could be dealt with if we just knew there were people in our lives that we could fall apart in front of.
Yes, absolutely.
You look at people like, I remember when it was like 1 week where Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade both committed suicide. And I'm not a suicide expert, and I obviously don't know anything about their lives, but something inside me intuitively said, if they had somebody they could completely fall to pieces in front of without any worry that it was going to get leaked to the press or anything else, if they had someone they could totally fall apart in front of, they'd still be here today. And whether or not I'm right, I believe that for myself, that if I don't have somebody to completely let myself go in front of and know that I'll be loved and not judged, then I would go fucking nuts.
It can't hurt. It definitely wouldn't have hurt for them. Absolutely.
It wouldn't have hurt. So I think that's probably why we get these messages that we're not supposed to feel these things, or it's not okay to think about feeling these things, just because people can't hold that space. So I really want people to understand, like, if you walk up to somebody on the street right now and you say like, hey, can I touch your hand? Which right now they'd probably run away from you. But if you if you say like, hey, can I touch your hand? And they say, yeah. And you say, okay, put your hand up. And then you take your hand and you put it against their hand and you press, they'll press back without you saying anything. Right? Immediately. Try it with anybody without telling them. Nobody lets their hand just go back. As soon as you press, they go, what's going on there? The same thing happens with our emotions. As soon as we try to push them away, they go, I'm not going anywhere. I deserve to be here. And they push back.
Yeah.
So as long as we keep resisting these things and thinking they're bad emotions and don't realize they are part of the total experience of being a human, that we can't feel moments of being godlike and like we're the greatest things ever unless we can also know feeling like worthless pieces of shit. And that's just the dichotomy of being a human. Until we can integrate that, we're always going to say that's bad and happy is good. And I don't want to judge my life that way.
Yeah. So true, man. Amazing explanation. Thank you. I'll only add to that a lesson that I've kind of picked up on over the years is that the more that I can get away from defining things as good or bad, I've had revelations. Yeah. Good and bad feelings, good and bad days, good and bad business, good and bad dog walks. The more that I can get away from good and bad, and I attribute a lot of this to every day I start my day off with Stoic philosophy. Yep. It's been amazing. And so the more I can kind of separate that, and again, it's a practice. It's not like I read a Stoic book and like we're saying earlier, I achieve fitness and done. No, it's a realization that the more that I can separate good and bad and just things happen, things are, we then get the option, we get the ability to attach reason and meaning to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's transformational. I really do hope that continues to be a part of my practice, so that not only for my development, but especially like children, like I don't want to pass off those expectations. I credit my upbringing. I was raised a lot by my grandparents, my family, very, again, tribe. And I feel like I've been set up for success in a lot of ways for parenting. But at the same time, like don't show your emotions, like suppress it down. So I really hope that I can carry on that skill set. And you will. Your work for sure, I mean, is a big part of that. And it's definitely going to help a lot of people. So thank you for that.
I'm trying, man. I'm in the same boat, man. I'm trying to live my message. And this is my whole thing is I want to wake up every day. And I was just talking to one of my clients about this last week, who's a coach and was having like a down day or a down week. And is like, well, then who the hell am I to be coaching if I can't figure this stuff out for myself? And I told him what I'll tell you, and I think it applies whether you're a coach or not, is that your only responsibility is to wake up every day and live in the direction of that thing, right? So if you know that living a happy life, it means you go west, then some days I'm going to take one step in the direction of west. Sometimes I'm going to get 2 miles in the direction of west. Sometimes I'm going to go a half a mile and then go back a quarter mile, but I still know that I'm living in the direction of west. If I can wake up every day and live in the direction of what I know to be true, what brings me peace and ease, because that is really the thing I'm trying to make the center of my universe. When I get anxious, I know 1,000% it's because I'm making something external the center of my universe. Wow. And any days that I make my business the center of my universe, I'm anxious. Anytime I make finding a romantic partner the center of my universe, I'm anxious. Anytime I make anything the center of my universe, I'm anxious. Why? Because if something's the center of your universe, then all you're trying to do is protect it from failing and falling apart. And that's not a way to live.
Make everything revolve around it.
Everything revolves around it. And then how can you possibly live life when you're so deep in the thing? So my practice has been really starting to shift that the only thing I will make the center of my universe is my own experience of peace and ease.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So when I start getting really stressed out, I want to ask myself the question whenever I can. This is not something I do 100% of the time. Yeah. It's the thing I do all the time, except the times I don't, is to ask myself, okay, in this moment, am I making my peace and ease a priority? Really slowing down for a minute. It's okay. I'm mad about this. The team member did this. The client didn't sign up. This person's complaining. Fine. In this moment, am I making my own peace and ease my priority? And if I'm not, that's for me to slow down, get really, really present, and ask myself what would make that a priority again in this moment.
That's a great recentering question, great anchoring. And I would challenge the person listening to create your own of that. I had a client last year in one of my coaching programs who were struggling to it wasn't so much like, what am I working on? What am I moving towards? What am I moving forward with? It was, I just feel like in order for me to really do that, I have to kind of like, I need to be attached to something. I need to attach a meaning. Like I need a tether. So we literally, I guess you call it like a little totem. We got him this, it was like I think he put it on a necklace or a bracelet. It was just this small little thing. I believe it was like a fly fishing lure from his grandfather. That's what his most formidable memories were with his grandfather on these trips. And what he was doing was trying to build this new community for brotherhood, for familyhood, for fatherhood. And he's like, I just like, I'm struggling to kind of like convey this. It's like, I feel like it's about me. You know, how do I kind of bring up this lesson that was so important to me that has helped my life so much and kind of bring that into the path for what I'm creating. And it was just this small little tether. So it can literally be a tangible thing. It can be a question like you just posed. For me, it's remembering just to like literally pause, take a breath. Yeah. And like breath has been so transformational because like that separates everything. It kind of reminds you of what's important and what's not.
Do you do like breathwork stuff, like actual breathwork
stuff?
Yeah.
I went through 2019. I did 2 guided breathwork sessions.
Nice.
First one was really wild.
Was it holotropic breathing? Did you have like the claw hands and stuff that happened?
Yeah. Do you know Samantha Skelly?
I do. Yeah.
She led the session.
No way. That's Ashley Stahl's best friend.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Samantha. And quick tangent with that one. She did the great explanation of like, here's physiologically probably what you're going to feel. You may feel something, you may not. And I kind of had like, the tingling that was getting the lobster claws, you get, hypoxia a little bit, super oxygenated blood. And then all of a sudden, dude, I shit you not, I was in my father, his last dying breaths in the hospital bed. It was an exact replica because I was there. My stepmom, my sister, our family friend, one of my best friend's sisters, and then me, I was in my father in his eyes staring at me in the window. And I always struggled with like, cause he had ALS. So for a long time he couldn't talk, couldn't walk. And so I never got like closure, he's never like, Chase, goodbye. I couldn't say goodbye. And in his voice, like I was in him looking through his eyes at me, and in his voice, he's like, Chase, it's okay. Out of nowhere, man. I was just like freaking out, doing my lobster claws on the floor. And then all of a sudden I was transplanted back in there. Like, what the hell is that about? That was amazing. The human body continues to blow my mind. And that was just through hyper breathing, man.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I feel like that message is trying to get to you all along. And that was the moment you were receptive to hear it.
When I finally paused, when I finally took a lot of breaths, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
That's, man, the power, the power of breathing, man. That's God, what did it, I can't even, like, I'm just feeling that experience for you.
It was insane.
Wow.
The second one, immediately I got an answer to a business decision that I was mulling over. It was like clear as day. It was like, yes. And so it wasn't like as emotionally intense, I guess. But breath work, nuts, man.
That's insane.
Yeah, like what's going on with these 2 nostrils, dude? It's crazy.
It's nuts, man. Wow. Yeah, I haven't done any holotropic breathing in a while, man. I should.
Samantha was good, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I've
really
never had
good.
to experience her work, but I heard she's amazing at that stuff.
Yeah. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, man. I know this is a big part of the work that you do, like for your own self and your content, but this is also what you help facilitate for other coaches, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's got to be a whole other level. I mean, I've coached clients and I've coached coaches. You have to really kind of shift your approach. You have to wear a different teacher hat because you're no longer just helping someone build fundamentals. Usually they're already, hey, I've already kind of gone a few steps. I've got this kind of strong foundation. What's your experience like coaching other coaches? Honestly, man, like this day and age, everybody on Instagram is a coach. Like, how are you different? Why are you different? And like, what end result are you hoping to kind of pass off to these other people that you're working with?
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. So I have a 1-line business plan.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you up front, this is something I want everybody listening to steal like an artist and make their own, because I think everybody can have this 1-line business plan for themselves in their own way. And my 1-line business plan is to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% more joy than I found them. Okay. That's my business plan. Now that's the front facing one. If I was being truthful, really truthful, my actual 1-line business plan would be to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% less suffering than when I found them.
Okay.
Right. I don't want to skew negative by putting it out there, but that's really what it is. So for me, kind of back to the known for versus known for activating, I know that my role on this planet is to help reduce or eliminate suffering from people's lives, or at least facilitate that happening. I'm not going to be egoic enough to think that I can remove it for them.
Right. Help put people on the path to that.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so the current iteration of that is helping coaches build their businesses. But the funny thing about it is that there's a lot of coaches out there that help people build their businesses, and a lot of them do really great work, and it's very strategic and practical, and all that stuff is great, and we do a lot of that as well. And I know that the deep transformational work is actually what holds people back. Because as much as people would love to say like, but my system for coaching will get you all the most clients and da-da-da-da-da, the fact of the matter is this. There was a Netflix documentary about diets, and they went through all the different diets, South Beach, Mediterranean, all these different things. And you know which one was the most effective diet that they found at the end? It's the one you'll stick with, right? And so the same thing happens here. All the different systems for building your business, if you stick with any one of them, they're probably going to work. The key, though, is to find the one that's in alignment with you. And in order for you to find what's in alignment for you, you need to know who the hell you are, right? And so what we do that I think is different is we focus so much on the human. We don't want you to just go be mini JGs. We don't want you to do any of that stuff. I want you to do my thing in your way. And my thing is intimacy and connection and really providing value. But I want you to find the way to do that in your own way. And I want you to bring out your humanity, your quirks, your personality, what really makes you you. Because I really believe that in most businesses nowadays, probably all businesses, but especially in coaching, it's 90% who you are and 10% what you teach.
100%. 100% to that 99%. Yes,
It's a good math equation.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Amazing. So that's really the thing is like, and it goes back to the known for versus known for activating. And the thing is like, if you look at churches, I'm sure in Virginia, there's a lot of churches.
I grew up Southern Baptist.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So there would be, at least in Florida and also North Carolina, there would be street corners where on opposite corners, there would be two churches that are both the same exact denomination. And there are certain people that will only go to church one and certain people that will only go to church two, but they literally have the same content. They have the same book.
They're teaching from the same book.
The same
curriculum. Yes.
Right.
Same textbook.
So then why do all the people go to one or go to the other? It's because of the person delivering it. They're bringing their story. It's the way they're showing up in the world. And it's like, there's something about that person. Our empathy receptors and our mirror neurons go crazy and say, there's something about that person. I want more of them in my life. That's what I believe helps you build your coaching business is really having people see like, oh, this human's like me. Because that happens as soon as we meet somebody, and this goes back to the community thing from before, right? As soon as I meet somebody, our empathy receptors say, are you like me or not like me? If you're like me, I want to get closer. If you're not like me, I'm going to run away as quickly as possible.
Because you could be a threat.
You could be a threat.
Yeah.
Same thing happens in business.
Yeah.
Business is an empathy game first and foremost.
100% agree. And I'll give away kind of some secret sauce. This podcast has been it for me. It has been the greatest form of other business generating revenue, of other opportunities, of meeting new people, of clients, of other opportunities. And it all has come down to, hey, I've been listening to you for one episode or a year. It's you.
Yep.
And before I can ever even be like, okay, here's what I have to offer. Here's the program I'm running, or here's my availability. How can I help? It's like, I resonate with what you do and how you say it, and you're one step ahead of me or 100 steps ahead of me. But there's that mirroring of it's not I'm trying to be you. And this is honestly how I've always chosen my mentors and coaches. It's just like, yo, I don't know. I mean, you're really not saying anything wild and crazy. We're not rewriting the book here. It's just how you deliver it. Yep. It's how you carry yourself. It's how I can relate to you. It's the vibe that I can get. And that's always been the determining factor. And someone be like, yo, Chase, like, what else do you have to offer? How can I work with you? How can I just be involved? Like, what else do you do? And it's always just been you.
Yep.
That's
my experience.
Same thing
too.
with you. Absolutely. I mean, the way that you deliver content, the joy that you bring, the humor. I mean, how much more humor could we all probably use in the world right now?
Yeah. A lot, man. It's so true. You nailed it, man. This is something that we teach. We call it your HOF, and HOF stands for your Hangout Factor.
That's right. You shared that with me before. Yeah.
So the Hangout Factor is huge. So somebody looks at you and go, I don't know what it is about you. And I feel this way about you. I'm like, I watch you on stories. I'm like, I don't know what it is about this guy, man. I just really want to hang out with him. Like, he's just really fucking cool. He's just a real dude. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, and you're also sharing great content, but the thing is, that's why we say it's the 90-10. When I say it's 90% you, 10% your content, some people will think, oh, it's 100% me. Well, no, it's not 100% you. It's 90-10. And the reason the metaphor I give for this is if you're doing a heart transplant, right? The time that it takes to stitch somebody up after you've put in a new heart guaranteed it's not more than 10% of the total amount of time of the surgery.
Okay.
Still a very important part of the surgery to stitch somebody up after the heart.
Got a new heart, but it's wide open.
It's just wide open.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. So you still have to be really good at what you do. You still want to master your craft. You want to hone in on how you can really serve people in a deep way.
Yeah.
But know that that's not your differentiator.
Okay.
Because everybody else can go to the same certification school, or they could go to the same college, or they could have similar background in work or in school or in military or whatever else. But when you layer yourself into that, that's the real differentiator, man. When you show up as Chase with your irreverence and the jokes with Nella and having May not respond to you when you're saying all these funny things, like that's what makes you you. And then the key here is that, especially with the internet and especially with service providers on the internet, there are so many people who immediately, and I had this experience as a white rapper, this is for
which
real.
we didn't even get into,
which we didn't even talk about. But I remember.
Should we freestyle at the end?
Well, you should freestyle. I'll be in the car.
It's a no for me, dog.
It's a hard no, hard pass.
Spaghetti.
Oh my God, that's the
being
best
on a
thing
Chappelle
ever.
run the whole time.
pour this one over here. Anyways,
Spaghetti.
I totally lost it, dude. So hip hop audiences are one of the most judgmental audiences in the world. And I don't know if it was just because I was a white kid, but I was a white kid in the 90s, up on stage. Like I was a proper rapper, like doing shows all across. Oh yeah. I opened for Wu-Tang in the past. Like
what?
Yeah, all up and down the southeast especially. We were doing stuff all up and down the coast there. I did it for years.
Yo, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.
They are, and cash rules everything around me. Couldn't get the money. Dollar bill.
Somebody should write that down.
Somebody should write that down. Yeah.
Lyric,
Shimmy, shimmy, y'all. So the thing I remember from being on stage was I would be the white rapper doing my thing, and I was pretty dope, if I do say so myself, but whatever. And you would see majority of the men in the audience, but the majority of dudes in the audience would have their arms crossed. And it's just like, this guy, I could do better than that. And so me being up there, I felt all this resistance, and it didn't matter how good of a rapper I was, didn't matter how good my content was, it wasn't getting through those crossed arms. And so I said, okay, I remember thinking to myself consciously, like, how do I get them to like me, man? Like, how do I break through that? And I'm like, what if I make them laugh? And so in between songs, when I was on stage, I would do like some self-deprecating humor. I would make jokes about stuff. And all of a sudden you slowly see the arms start to kind of, all right, yeah, he cool. He all right. I mean, he cool. I'm still better than him. But like, he's okay. And the same thing happens when you bring your hangout factor in the world, is there's so many people who are resistant. Oh, another guru, another 30-something telling me how to live my life, and they're going to wag my finger at me.
Another 20-year-old life coach.
Another 20-year-old life coach, right? And when instead you show up.
I've seen them.
Of course, I get it. And instead, when you show up from this place of like, I'm not wagging my finger at you. In fact, I'm confessing about how this has shown up in my life and how I've totally effed this up and how I'm still working on it. Then the arms get uncrossed and they're like, okay, well, they're probably BS, but let me just see what they have to say. And that's a beautiful thing about the internet, is when you really show up authentically, not as a strategy, right? Because I have a definition of authenticity for me. Authenticity is what's left over when I stop trying to manage your impression of me. Authenticity is what's left over when I stop trying to manage your impression of me.
Great definition.
And that's what's left behind, right?
Yeah.
So the more I can be authentic, which is not something I try to do, but it's just what comes out when I stop trying, then the more people's resistance is lowered. And then if I have a message to share with them, they're much more likely to actually hear the message.
I think everybody has a really good bullshit meter. No matter the filter, video, audio, Instagram, YouTube, no matter what. Maybe I'm speaking out of place. I don't know. But I just feel like you can just tell, like, I want to follow this person. I want to read their book. I want to work with them. I want to work for them. I want to just allow them more in my life in one way, shape, or another. Pay attention to that, people. Like that's intuition. That's instinct. That's whatever. That's the mirror neurons. Like, it's worth looking into. It's worth making space for, like we've been talking about this whole time.
I agree. Nella?
Nella's making a lot of space for sleep. She's been killing the space game.
Does she have an Aura ring?
Is she alive?
Is she measuring her sleep? How's your sleep? She's giving me side eye right now. Just so you know, this is like a very like Kardashian. You're throwing shade at me right now. What did I quote you and not like give you credit? What's going on right now?
Her resting heart rate is 2.
It's negative 14.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I'm actually impressed. She stayed up here the whole time.
Yeah. Does she not usually do that?
No, she'll come and go.
Really?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, she's kind of like a cat. She's like, all right, I'm ready for attention. All right, I'm done.
And now I'm done.
And then she'll just like go go back to bed.
She's so sweet, man. I'm so happy she's with us.
Thanks, man. Talk about bringing joy to your life,
Dude.
Dude, dogs, pets are the best.
Animals are the best. I need to get another dog. I'm just, before I had an excuse that I was traveling too much. And I said this year I didn't want to travel as much.
So it's your fault.
Everybody said, they said, you manifested COVID. I'm like, this is my first, so in the 3 years I've lived in LA, this is my first summer here. Usually I'm in Europe for basically the entire summer doing different work stuff. And so this is my first time being here in summer, and I was getting kind of stir crazy. And I've thought about, like, maybe I need to get an animal, or maybe I need to have an animal that gets me. Like, can I foster Nella for like a week and just see if it may like kill you?
Rent a Nella.
I would totally rent a Nella. Oh my God, Nella, can I rent you and take you home with me?
Yeah, she's pretty dope. Not gonna lie.
She went to sleep. She's done with it.
Well, Jason, it's been so good having you on the show, man.
Thanks, man.
We'll kind of wrap up here. The book, Prison Break, Vanquish the Victim, Own Your Obstacles, and Lead Your Life. I brought my pen. You brought the book. I got to get a signed copy. We're going to add this to the library. Can't wait to dive into it, man. All the things I've been talking about, everything I'm doing here today, it's just a culmination of my experiences. And we've been talking a lot about my story and my father. Those two words came from him, Everforward. Everforward Radio, my tattoo. It's my whole way of being. And it started because it was a way, like we we're talking earlier, it was my tether to him. It was this thing that he just said his entire life. And then we had to witness him finally live it. You know, he was like, no matter what, like shit happens for a reason. The obstacle's the way. You have to keep moving forward. And literally until his dying breath, that was what it was. And so then when I embodied that instead of running from it, it took me like 10, 12 years to finally, to have my body, to have my physiology, to have my emotions, my spirit, everything finally like rein me in and be like, no, Chase, we need to work on this stuff. It became my entire essence for being. And so a lot of different things go into that. Fitness, nutrition, mindset, just self-optimization, finding things in people like you, man, who we can mirror with, and then get put on our path to live a life ever forward. Amen. What does that mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
Yeah, man. I love everything you said, by the way. And you're such a model for what you speak. Like you're a true self-leader and you walk your talk. And I think everybody who listens to this and listens to your show and watches you knows that that's the truth. The BS meter, 1,000%. They know you're totally legit about this. I love that. Yeah, and I love this whole notion of ever forward, this whole concept of ever forward. And to me, it really does mean that I'm showing up every day and I'm playing the JFT game, the just for today game. Tomorrow is none of my effing business, but today I can be super intentional about what I do, and I'm gonna have backslides, and I'm gonna have times where I beat myself up, and I'm gonna have times where I fall off track and I lose sense of my purpose, and I start worrying if like I'm on the right track anymore. And the more I know that that's a part of the journey. Right? If I was born and they gave me a piece of paper and said, here are the dates where you were going to question your purpose, and that date happened and I questioned my purpose, I'd say, okay, well, that's a part of my journey. It was already there beforehand. So if I can start treating my life that way, that everything is temporary, from broken bones to ice cream cones, everything is temporary, right? So the more I can practice that on a daily basis, then I feel like I'm living a life ever forward.
You had me at ice cream cones, man.
Me too. I'm so hungry. Salt and straw.
My biggest takeaway is living a life ever forward means more ice cream.
It definitely 1,000% does. I hope Salt and Straw will sponsor the show going forward.
Dude, that's been, I don't know if it's been a good thing or a bad thing, but the fact that I can walk to Salt and Straw.
Wait, you can walk to from here?
Oh yeah, they're right down the corner.
Oh, you should have told me that.
In my mind, I justify it, but like, the walking calories negate the ice cream calories. Absolutely.
The 4 calories, absolutely 1,000%.
Well, Jason, I'm of course have all of your stuff listed down in the show notes for people, but where can they go right now to connect with you the most? Yeah,
I'm actually going to give you a link to give people a free copy of the book. So if they want to get a free digital
free
copy.
$99?
$99, digital copy, audio copy. And if you're in the States, you pay a couple bucks shipping and handling. I'll actually ship you a physical book. Yeah, so we'll do that. Cool. And then you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at the Jason Goldberg because Jason Goldberg was taken. So I had to get the pretentious the Jason Goldberg, what are you going to do? And I post a lot of terrible cat memes and fruit. No, I'm just kidding. I post a lot of content there that's directly in line with the conversation here. So yeah, we can continue the conversation there.
Yeah, if you guys have found value in today's message and conversation with Jason, just go to his page, his Instagram. It's just video, infographic. It's all of these things for yourself, for, all my coaches out there. I always hold a soft spot in, the coaching world because I do different versions of it nowadays. But I just know how transformational it is for people, how transformational it was and still is for my life in terms of coaching, being coached. it's having that person who is just at least one step ahead of you in any way that you can jive with, man, that you can mirror with.
Yeah.
It's transformational. It's necessary too. So check out Jason Goldberg. The book is Prison Break, and we're going to have a hookup in the show notes. You can get your own copy, and don't sleep on this one. All right.
Thanks, brother.
So, thank you.
Appreciate it.